Good afternoon and welcome everyone. Thanks for coming. Hello to everyone watching on YouTube. My name is Jeff Buchan and I work on the industry relations team here at Google. Extremely excited today to be joined by Pat Helding, owner and creator of one of New York City's most beloved bakeries, Fat Witch Bakery, which is right here in Chelsea Market.
Thank you.
Yes,
Wow.
yes. Pat launched Fat Witch in 1998 and has since appeared on the Food Network, CBS, CNN, MTV, and her mouthwatering brownies have been named one of Oprah's favorite things. On the heels of the success of her first cookbook, Fat Witch Brownies, Fat Witch Bake Sale, which you see up there, includes 67 never-before-published recipes for cakes, cookies, bars, brownies, and more from Pat's personal collection. Pat and I actually used to work together on the Google Offers team in the days of Google Offers. I'm thrilled to be speaking with her again today. So please join me in welcoming Pat Helding.
Thank you.
So welcome, Pat. Thanks
Thank
so much
you.
for coming in. It's great to see you.
My pleasure.
I want to start off by asking you a few questions about your background and how Fat Witch came to be. You made a pretty interesting and probably uncommon transition going from Wall Street to opening your own bakery. So what made you want to leave finance in the first place and open your own business? And then why a bakery?
Good question. And normally when I'm asked this question, Jeff, I usually give a very upbeat answer. This time with Google, I'm going to tell you the down and dirty truth.
We get the real answer. I like it.
The real answer. I was a trader on Wall Street, one of the first women to be a specialist, on equity options. Loved it, but I have to say trading finances is not the most satisfying thing. It can be exciting, but it's not the most satisfying. I did recognize a certain bubble in the market, and I set up all the positions for it and made a lot of money for the firm. And when that money, those profits were distributed among all the traders, I decided I was going to run my own business. And that's when I started Fat Witch. And why a bakery? I had a great brownie recipe, and I kind of put one and one together and said, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, that's great. So in opening and operating your own business, what would you say has been the single largest challenge in making that happen? For those of us interested in potentially opening our own business one day.
Okay, I think the hardest thing is to get started and you've got to really believe this is what you want to do. What I've seen with people who want to open their own business, they do a ton of research or they just plunge ahead. Yeah. And you got to get somewhere in between. So I think that's the advice I would give anybody.
Gotcha. And were you always a good cook? Is it something that you did before you started to do it for a living? Was it something you always just had a knack for?
Yes, I like to cook. I will admit it. Yes, I like to cook. I like to bake. Always have. My plan B, if the brownie business didn't work out, I was going to be a chef on a yacht in the Caribbean.
Oh,
and
wow.
No, I'm so glad it didn't work out because I can't take the sun. I don't know. It was a comfort, but I don't know what I was thinking, but it gave me comfort.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I asked the questions coming from someone who is the opposite. I'm probably the worst cook in the world, so that's kind of where I'm coming from.
You? Oh.
Yes,
Okay.
pretty bad, pretty bad. One thing I'm really interested in personally is how was the Fat Witch brand born? Such a cool logo and brand. Where did the idea come from?
I became fascinated with branding since we had a no-budget marketing budget, no money whatsoever. I did the logo myself, and I don't even. Somewhere I've got the original drawing, but it's been vectored out and all sorts of things since.
Yeah.
I've probably, instead of reading cookbooks, I was reading branding books. I've probably read 100 or so. I would say my inspiration is Starbucks and
Really?
Howard Schultz. Well, you think about a cup of coffee and what they've done with that. So that was my inspiration to start it. And branding is much more complicated than one would think, as at Google.
Yeah, well, that's great. I consider myself a dessert enthusiast. And I can honestly say that Fat Witch Brownies are my favorite brownies in New York City. You guys have had a lot of success over the years. Was there a certain tipping point that you can sort of identify where you thought, the baker has really taken off?
That's a hard question to answer. Very good question, but it's pretty hard to answer because It was really slow at first. And now you see Chelsea Market, bustling and hustling, but it was not always that way. One Sunday we did $43 worth of business. That was pretty scary. Now when, things I'd say by, I don't know, a number of years ago we started, oh my goodness, we did twice as much as we did a year ago on that particular date. And now when I see things revert back to maybe 2 years ago, I'm in a panic. So I can't really say what success is. I don't know.
Yeah, sort of a moving target.
Yeah. Perfect, yes.
Your store is located conveniently close to the Google office in Chelsea Market, which we certainly love. What has it meant to you to be part of the Chelsea community, and more specifically the Chelsea Market community, for so many years now?
I'm going to answer that question by talking about Google. Because we used to bake across the street in Chelsea Market, and basically we would sell all day and bake all night. And Google was on the second floor. We were on the first floor. And one day this woman came in and she said, I'd like you to come upstairs with me. And so I did. It was my first time at Google. And we went to this brick wall, and it reeked of chocolate. I mean, it was just so strong. It was unbelievable. It was almost like the bakery.
Yeah.
So that was a great moment at Google, and I thank you. And I don't know whether it's still there because we no longer bake in Chelsea Market. We have expanded facilities uptown, but it's been a great relationship ever since.
Yeah. And so do you feel a large sense of camaraderie with the other businesses in Chelsea Market? And because you guys have been there for a long time now, not always the case in the other locations. Do you coordinate a lot with the other business owners and things like that? Or is it kind of just everyone running their own separate shops?
It's pretty much everyone's running their own shop. I think the management really coordinates things over there.
Yeah, gotcha.
So, we try to be good neighbors. We let the flower shop come in and use our water, take gallons of water out. But it's really management does most of that coordination.
Gotcha. Any plans to expand with any additional Fat Witch locations, potentially?
We would love to expand. We have a financial hurdle to get over, and then we hope to open up more stores in New York pretty rapidly.
Gotcha. Very cool. One thing I know the last time we spoke that I found very interesting is that you mentioned Fat Witch has a very large following in Japan, which I found sort of surprising and really interesting. Any plans to do more there, potentially open up a shop overseas in Japan?
Thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
I just got back from Japan, and we hope to partner. The final agreement has not been done, but we hope to partner with a butter factory and bakery in Japan.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's fascinating. And the reason we have so many Japanese customers from Japan is that in Japan they have a culture of cute, and you have to think of Hello Kitty, and even their UPS transportation company, their logo is a kitten holding another baby kitten. So it's called kawaii, and if you've been to Japan, you will see lots of kawaii around. And I think the first 5 years or so, I pictured there were lots of brownies sitting on people's bookshelves just for kawaii's sake.
Yeah.
And I've never eaten, but I think we're getting people to eat them now.
That's very cool.
Chocolate is new to Asia, by the way.
That's interesting. That's probably one of those things that you could never have anticipated when you started your business, but interesting to see how Japanese clientele is a really big thing for you.
It is big, and we target some things for that clientele.
Got it.
Just the candy that we do, it's little 2-inch cube boxes. That is targeted for Japanese from Japan, so they can take omiyage back to Japan as a gift.
Very cool. I know from working with you in the past that you are very tech forward. I'm serious. I'm saying that seriously. When you have your own business and you're everything from the CEO to the head cook, it's not easy to make time for new technology and experimenting. But I think you do a really good job of that. Can you talk a little bit about the role that technology and the internet has had in growing your business?
I think if you don't have any technology in your business, you really don't have a business. I'm just laughing because I feel we're so behind the times. And then you just told me earlier that other people that you work with were really behind. I thought,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, I can't believe
You're doing great.
that we were. I mean, we want to get much more tech forward. I always get good ideas from Google, participating in some of your seminars and things. And I have a vision of a production room that's got computers, and you just type in the recipe you're going to do, and it comes up with visuals of how to do it, as well as a lot of stuff in the store. So we'd like to be much more.
Yeah. When you are baking, how much of it is sort of a measured science versus just an art where you're still experimenting? Is it very calculated where everything is the same? Or is it more experimentation, trying new things?
Baking is more scientific than cooking. You can mess around with a marinara sauce far more than you can a brownie recipe. Once you get the recipe set, it is done by pounds and ounces. We don't take 2 eggs and break them. It's 8 pounds of eggs, because we're doing 80 quarts at a time. So it has to be measured. That doesn't mean we don't experiment with recipes. I always believe that I've never seen a recipe I can't change, but it's like once it's set, we have to, and particularly being commercial, we have to make that the same way each time.
Yep. And coming from finance, I'm sure you're familiar with the idea of economies of scale. It seems like baking is a lot about that and sort of estimating demand and things like that. Is that difficult to do? I mean, I would assume that demand sort of swings from day to day and week to week. How do you go about the process of estimating how many brownies are we going to sell today? How many we need to produce?
That is such a good question. I mean, now I'm going to have to
tough.
tell you another secret.
Uh-oh. Don't tell. Nobody tell.
Okay. Shh. This is how we do it. We bake. We let it cool down. We cut the brownies. We wrap the brownies. They go in a freezer. And it's stacked up. So we pull out what we need for the day. You've never known that those don't come directly out of the oven. The unwrapped ones that we have do.
Got it.
And that we juggle, and we run out of stuff all the time. Because you're so right.
It's a tough thing to
It's
do,
a
sure.
tough thing to call. And it's like one day everybody wants the vegan brownie, then the next day it's the coffee one. It's very hard. But that's the way you do it. Even for Japan, we're there twice a year for food shows. We have it flash frozen. It gets picked up by a truck, in a frozen truck. It goes to the dock in New Jersey, still frozen, down the Atlantic Ocean, across the Panama Canal, across the Pacific Ocean. It takes 4 weeks. I've met it in Yokohama. They're fine. And it's just like you would never know. So because we flash freeze everything is the real truth.
Gotcha. What is the fan favorite in the bakery? And then what is your favorite?
I would say probably the Caramel Witch is the fan. Didn't see people over there, sorry. The fan favorite.
That's my favorite too.
Is it?
It is, yeah.
Okay, good to know. For me, I like whatever we've just produced, like the Red Velvet Witch, or we just did a witch with lavender essence, lavender extract in it. I'm pretty unfaithful, so.
Your first cookbook, which came out in 2010, you published the recipe for your famous brownies. Was that a hard decision to publish that in a book for everyone to see? Is that something you sort of struggled with? Or was that an obvious thing that you knew you wanted to do?
In a word, Jeff, no, it wasn't a problem. Because I think running a business the hook is running the business. My recipe, if with research you could duplicate a Fat Witch. I mean, when I was in Japan at the butter factory, they said, "Oh, we've made it." we don't need your recipe, because they can take it apart. Now, are you going to do that at home? No. Are you going to build a business out of brownies? Probably not. So the answer is no.
Right.
It wasn't.
It's more about just the brownies at this point. It's about the Fat Witch brand and all the stuff that surrounds the brownies. Yeah. That's great. So now I'd like to shift gears a little bit to talk about your second cookbook, which we have right here. We also have these available to purchase afterwards if you guys are interested, which I highly recommend. What was the impetus for this cookbook? Because obviously it was a different, sort of focus than the first one. Where did the idea for this cookbook come from?
The idea came from my agent, which I can't believe I'm saying. I have a literary agent, but I do. And when she said, you've got to do another cookbook, I said, Sharon, huh? What? And I said, I told you everything I know about baking, about brownies. That was cookbook number 1. She said, do you still bake at home? And I said, yeah, I do. She said, go through that. So she came up with the idea of bake sale, and it's really my stuff that I do at home. But we threw in lots of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of non-brownie items in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've got cake in there. It's the best chocolate cake you're ever going to make.
What are some basic ingredients that you recommend that people have on hand, just in case their children forget the morning bake sale at the school or something like that? They have to prepare something in a pinch.
Okay.
Any must-haves that people should just always have on hand?
Don't write this down, but I'm gonna, instead of making specifics, I'm gonna give you 5 elements that are good to have at home if you're ever gonna bake, and you can make a lot of things. The first is you have to have something sweet if you're going to do a piece of pastry. And sweet doesn't have to be white granulated sugar. It can be honey. It could be agave, which I hear is your new sweet of choice here at Google. Wow. Brown rice syrup. Maple syrup can work. There's a lot of things you can do. The next thing you would need would be fat, and it doesn't have to be butter, but it can be a butter substitute. Earth's Balance is a good one. I don't use margarine, but that's an oil-based fat. If you're vegan, you probably already have a jar of coconut oil, which I've learned to love. Amazing. And I did take a note on this. So, canola oil. And there's lots of other oils out there. You just have to make sure. Olive oil I never use for baking because it has too much of a flavor. But canola is pretty neutral, so you might want to do that. So that's 2. 3 would be eggs or an egg substitute. 4 would be flour. And flour is what binds pastries together. I always thought it was eggs, but it actually is flour. Who knew? And so it can be with gluten or gluten-free. Just please make sure if you use gluten-free, it's not cup for cup substitution. You have to have a recipe that's got gluten-free flour. Let me rephrase. That was specifically written for using gluten-free flour. And the last thing you need, Jeff, to put in your cupboard is flavor. And of course, we love chocolate, but it could be peanut butter, strawberry jams, whatever your kind of flavor is. And you probably already have things in your cupboard that would work. So it's not complicated, but just think of those 5 elements.
That's good to know. So this book, I think, really has something for everyone. You sort of break it down into different categories, things like gluten-free recipes, foreign recipes, kids recipes, etc. Are the different areas that you broke down in the book, are these areas you're seeing a lot of demand from customers? And that's sort of how you got the idea to break it down that way, or what were you thinking there?
Yes, I think there is a lot of demand for things like gluten-free. I put recipes in there, and I do it at home even though I keep flour on the premises, gluten flour. And please be careful if you are celiac or have a problem with gluten. don't go to a bakery that's got both, because once it's in the air, I don't care how many times you clean the equipment, it's major to become gluten-free. So if somebody says they're gluten-free and then they've got, bread next to it, it's probably not. And I think that's going to get much stricter with the government soon. Vegan was new to me, and I sort of turned up my nose, but it's fantastic. I love doing coconut oil, and you don't need eggs for everything. So.
And you sell the vegan brownies in your store now, right?
We do.
Pretty popular?
Yes. People are tweeting, I got the last one. I'm like, yay. That was great.
I am a very amateur baker / cook, and I'd say that's pretty generous to put it that way. Are there any recipes in this book that you recommend that even I could take on?
Most of them you could take
Really?
on. Yeah.
Even
Oh, yeah.
me?
I promise you. There's one that's a no-bake. Use rice crackers. Just dribble chocolate on top of it. Fantastic. It's called the toffee crunch chunks. Easy.
So if I were to pick up this book, top 3 recommendations for me, what would they be?
I'd do the toffee, what do I call it? The toffee crunch. I'd do vegan, very easy. I mean, that's when I have a dinner party, I never remember to bring home brownies, never. And I do the vegan, like you can just knock it together like that.
Yeah.
And the third one, I don't know. I just look for something really simple. I can't think of one off the top of my head.
I think there were some cinnamon toast crunch
Cinnamon
bars in
toast,
there.
those are that's
those
great.
caught my eye. Yeah.
Yeah,
Might try those.
that is really good. You have to like cinnamon, but
Oh, I do.
Okay.
I just don't like baking is the issue. So
Okay.
I'll let you know how it
These
goes.
are easy. Yeah, you'll get a test.
Sounds good. I want to make sure we leave time for questions from the audience. So we have 2 microphones there. If you guys have any questions, feel free to just step right up and ask your question of Pat. In the meantime, I'll go with one more from me. Any advice for people who are looking to start their own business? I know we talked about the challenges, but what would your advice be if some people are sort of just starting to think through that process and think it's something they might want to pursue?
I think, as I said before, it's good to do some research. It's a lot easier to do that research now than it was, 15, 20 years ago. I think perhaps the most important thing would be to have your project, the finished project in mind. What do you want? Do you want a store? Do you want to just do wholesale? Do you want to consult with this, whatever. Have that in mind, and then you can backtrack of what you need to get there. And then once you have that business plan ready, be prepared to change everything. You're going to have to shift gears because things are going to change. I didn't know the Japanese from Japan were going to come in.
Right. That's great.
So.
Question over there, Carly.
My question actually sort of builds on that. How easy or hard is it to start a business in New York City? You could have done this in a lot of different cities. It could have been more challenging, or maybe because of the foot traffic of where you chose, Chelsea Market ended up being a really smart decision. Can you tell us a little bit about New York City versus another place, and then also why Chelsea Market? Because you mentioned you were a trader and you obviously knew downtown, even further downtown. Why here? What was the connection?
Wow. I think New York is difficult. There's a lot particularly in the food business, I will tell you that from what I hear from inspectors and also from people who deliver our ingredients, work cleaner, believe it or not, than a lot of other cities, a lot of other places. The inspection is tough and it's thorough. So, we can't have anything, on the floor, whatever. So New York is tough. It's probably the toughest in the United States in terms of food. Rents are probably higher than any other place except for probably Alaska and Hawaii. But you get foot traffic here. People are on their feet. If you take Los Angeles, for instance, people are in a car. So, that I just thought, well, I know New York better. So that would be, the reason. And I, live here. So, and downtown, the Chelsea Market, when it first opened, was inexpensive. And they wanted people to come in and produce food there. So it is much, much different now.
Yeah. That.
Thank you.
So,
Thanks.
thank you.
William.
Hi.
Hi.
So a follow-up to your business plan question. I know there's certain things you couldn't account for, like your Japanese expansion. But aside from that, when you were doing your business planning, did you make a conscious effort, like, I'm going to keep this small and contained, or I want global domination?
Very good. I don't think global domination ever occurred to me, but I wanted to be I wanted to be the brownie that you would go to. I think that those are really good elements to put into your business plan. And then, depending on how you get your funding, that, is going to affect that. That's why I say, like, what is the finished product going to look like? We're nowhere near our finished project. We've got stores to build and things to do. I'm going to be back in Japan in September and maybe Dubai, so, with partners. So it's, we're still a work in progress. But I think the more you can put those elements in early on, you're going to be shocked 10 years later at how much it's changed. But try to get them in early on. And you want to get your demographics in. You want to get who your clients are going to be. And this is part of branding. Really, you want to know what they buy. I mean, Google, you guys are great at that, right? So there we are.
Do you do demographic analysis constantly, just so that you understand your changing client base?
Not on a professional level. But it's really more a gut feel.
Sort of anecdotally when people come in the door.
Yeah. And that's why I'm in the bakery a lot, just to talk to people, that kind of thing. But I don't know. I guess we've done some surveys and things, but it's hard to get the whole reach. For us, we're pretty tiny. So.
Another question over there.
I have two questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
First, pretty straightforward. What's your process for coming up with the new recipes? Like, are you personally coming up with all of these new combinations, or do you have a team of helpers and tasters and people with their ear to the ground on new flavors?
I have a production manager, and she knows far more about baking than I do. And this was also built into my business plan that I have no training in baking. I didn't know what a commercial oven was. But that's the plunge ahead and go do it. So she knows much more. Strangely enough, she's a graduate of Hyde Park Culinary Institute, which is the highest of the high in food in the United States. I'm the one with 2 cookbooks, go figure. Life is strange that way. But we collaborate, and then we test on our employees all the time. And in the bakery, too, sometimes.
If you ever need any extra testers,
Okay.
you know where we are.
Okay, good. We'll bring it over.
I actually have 3 questions, but okay. So
Good.
I came up with another one. But so you have all these different, I haven't looked at the book yet, but I will. You have all these different variations. And I'm just thinking of the New York Times just did a thing on what makes a sandwich a sandwich. Like, at what point is a brownie not a brownie? Like, what's a brownie versus a cookie? Is it the ingredients in it, the shape, the squareness? How do you define it?
They think that brownies were invented by someone who forgot to put baking powder or baking soda into a cake. And there's no written history of this, but they think that it was like a fallen cake. And it was in the United States for sure. That's the only thing we know. And it is one of our few American-based pastries, that and chocolate chip cookies. Because most of our pastries here are based on either German, Austrian, or French.
Cool.
And now some Japanese.
Okay, I'll let someone else ask a question. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I just sampled your vegan brownie and it was delicious.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm not a vegan. So question, you were talking a little bit about the marketing, and I'm curious how you came up with Fat Witch, the title and the logo in general. Like, why a witch?
Okay. I like witches, but when I was a trader, one of my friend traders had a laugh just like she had a cackle. It was just like a witch. And I would bring brownies to the trading floor. And Pamela would come over every day. And I said, Pamela, seriously, this is a lot of butter. You're going to be a fat witch if you keep eating these. Okay. And I just thought it was a funny name. And as I said, I just drew the logo because, we didn't have any money to hire a graphics person. Now I have a graphics person, but, back then, no. So it was just, and the one thing, some people, when we started out, people said, that's a terrible name. You should never use that. But nobody forgets it. That's the trade-off with it.
I guess the question is, does Pamela know that she is the inspiration for Fat Witch?
Yes.
She does.
She does. Good question.
I think we might have time for one or two more questions, if anyone has them.
Go ahead. I'm sure. Come
right up.
on.
Take over here. Okay, you mentioned you had dreams of kind of one day using technology and it could be all automated. And I guess my question is that if that could really happen and you took that step, like at what point is it too far, or would you go fully automated if you could? Is that still baking, or does there need to be some sort of human element, in it? And do you lose something of your brand if it becomes too automated in the process?
That is a genius question there.
Thank you.
Third time's a charm.
A lot of baking is pretty automated with depositors as they go along a conveyor belt. They're dropping in so much flour, dropping in so much stuff. I mean, you've seen it on the Food Network and stuff. I don't think we're going to ever be that globally dominant that we would do that. What's nice about that is that there aren't any mistakes. But I think you do lose something. And I can't pinpoint what it would be, but I think it makes you less experimental. I think a Hostess cupcake is always going to be that Hostess cupcake.
Gotcha. All right, time for one more question. Yeah.
We're like the question people.
All right.
Okay, so we used to be based in this building, my team, and we just recently moved over to Chelsea Market.
You just used to be what?
We used to be based in this building.
Oh, base. Okay. Yeah.
And so we just moved over about a month ago to Chelsea Market, and it's the bane of my existence because I'm walking through bakery corridor on my way to work every day. So I have a huge sweet tooth. My question for you, if you weren't eating at Fat Witch, you've already had your fill of Fat Witch, what's your next stop? Which is your favorite other bakery?
Question.
And what would you get there?
I would probably go to Sarah Beth's. And I think she has quality pastries. I do like, she's got an egg salad sandwich, and I think she makes like the English muffins or whatever, the biscuits, she puts it on. Buying somebody else's brownies, I only do for experiment. Cookies, maybe. But I would probably go to Sarah Beth's next.
Okay, so then Ruthie's versus Alini's. Do you have a
Ruthie's isn't there anymore.
It's not there anymore? When did that happen?
They, a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
Because they're going to put something else in there.
Okay. Cool.
So.
Great. Alrighty. Well, Pat, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
And for bringing your treats with us. I know we're all very appreciative.
Thank you.
And good luck with the cookbook. It's
Thank
wonderful.
you. Thank you. And there are lots of treats. Please help yourself. There's
Yes, we
so
have
many more.
treats and cookbooks in the back, so feel free
Take
to
more
grab
than
either.
one, please.
Great.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.